Namaste everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of the Upanishads. In episode 1, we took an overview of what the Upanishads are all about, what are the central teachings, how they are taught, what all things can you expect from the wisdom of the Upanishads. In episode 2, we deep dived into who the rishis were, who were the seers from whom the wisdom uh, is said to have come. In episode 3, then we deep dived into the Vedas and the various layers of Vedas, one of which is the Upanishads, and how it all relates. And today, for the episode 4, I wanted to deep dive into how the Upanishads teach you. So, given that you are a student, uh, what is the method in which the Upanishads are teaching you? So let's begin. So, there is something very special about the Upanishads because they are not like other scriptures in which you are given a doctrine to be followed. You are handed down a list of things that you should follow and not follow. The Upanishads do not make you believe in something. They don't give you conclusions and ask you to believe in them. The Upanishads have a different method of teaching. What they do is they invite you to see for yourself. They invite you to listen to the wisdom yourself. And they invite you to ask your own questions. And they guide you from your one question to the next so that you can yourself obtain clarity or the understanding of everything under the sun, right? So your questions can be anything that come from within and you want to know them, and they guide you from one question to the other, and that's how they invite you to listen to the answers yourself. So this is what makes the Upanishads unique, because they do not give you a doctrine, they invite you for your self inquiry. And how they do that is through the Guru Shishya Parampara, which we also briefly touched upon in episode 2. See, in ancient India, teaching was not about giving information and expecting the student to cram it all. Teaching was about becoming the living example of how someone else should live. Okay, so the Shishya used to look up to their Guru and understand the way of living from them as the living example of that. So, Guru literally means dispeller of darkness. Gu means darkness and Ru means dispeller. And that's what ancient gurus did to their Shishyas. Whenever there was a query coming to the Shishya's mind, the Guru would dispel the darkness by giving them a lamp of light so that they can uncover the answers which are already within the Shishya. So it's not a handing down of information to be crammed, but unraveling of the inner knowing of the Shishya. Also, typically, the Shishya is not somebody who is just listening to the truth being spoken and without questioning it, just imbibing it within them. No, the Shishya is expected traditionally to be very disciplined and leading a disciplined life, and being inquisitive about any kind of darkness that may be lingering within them. So, a typical Shishya would be curious and disciplined. So, there are three things typically associated with a Shishya. One is Shraddha. Shraddha means there is no proper word to explain Shraddha in English, but Shraddha means devotion towards learning. Okay. The second is seva. So the student used to bring seva to the guru in the form of thanks, because there was no fees to be paid, but there was seva to be offered. And finally, tapas. Tapas means discipline in English. So the shishya typically followed a very disciplined routine, a very disciplined life once they decided to learn under a guru. So here's everything that I've spoken of so far. So together they make up the Guru Shishya Parampara. So typically what is said to have happened is that Guru just does not decide one day to impart a certain kind of information to the Shishya. It's not a fixed lecture on day 1, day 30, day 60. No, they would wait for the right time when the Shishya is ready for an information, and then they would start the parampara of inquiry, of giving them space to ask. And then they would not just give a sermon as a information, they would invite queries, and they would also invite reflection into the shishya's own queries. So the as I said, it's unraveling of the inner light, the inner wisdom, right? So the guru would just bring a lamp and light your inner wisdom so that you can see it within you instead of giving that information to you. And that's what happened. So typically it would be question from a shishya, silence from guru. Question from shishya, silence from guru. And then question from shishya, and then inner reflection from shishya. And the guru would just be there. Let them uncover everything on their own. And typically, those questions would be big questions about life. So, if you find out about the Upanishads one by one, every Upanishad starts with a deep, unsettling, and existential question asked by a Shishya. For example, in the Mandukya Upanishad, a student or Shishya comes to the Guru and asks, what is it by knowing which everything is known? And that is what that Upanishad answers. And that is the answer that the Shishya hears through the Mandukya Upanishad. Similarly, Kathopanishad or Katha Upanishad, the student asks, what happens to life after death? What happens to me after death? And that Upanishad is the hearing of the answer that the Shishya heard. That's why Upanishads are called Shruti. The answer that was heard by the Shishya when they asked this question is what Kathopanishad is all about. And then there is Taittiriya Upanishad, in which the question that is asked is, where does the world come from and what sustains it? That kind of deep existential question is what Taittiriya Upanishad is heard to have answered. And that is the wisdom that was heard, that is being transferred through that Upanishad. So these questions are not small everyday questions, these are deep questions. And it's not that only the seeker asks such questions. All of us ask this question at some or the other point in our lives. It's just that how loud we hear that question is what makes us a seeker. Most of us would just suppress the questions within us, distract ourselves, not try to get them answered. We would just suppress this inner questioning that comes up within us instead of trying to find answers to these. But these are the questions which were asked and have been asked for thousands of years by humans and were answered initially in the ancient times via these Upanishads. And the Guru does not answer such queries with a dogma. The Guru answers these queries with further queries that the seeker can question themselves. So they would answer. So, for example, in Ken Upanishad, the starting question is that what is it that makes my mind think? That's the initiation question. And the answer that the Guru gives is the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of the speech, the unseen seer, the unheard voice. So that is the kind of questions that are asked, and those are the kind of answers that are given. So the answers are basically inviting you to reflect more on the questions and generate further questions from within yourself and try to answer them by cross questioning. So that is the kind of teachings that are there in Upanishads, and that are the method of teaching that are utilized. How do the Upanishads take you from questioning to realizing the answer to the question? We can take an example from Kathopanishad. Nachiket was a young boy, and he asked Yamraj the question that how can I become immortal? What is it that will make me um, beyond death? So Yam offers him all the pleasures, money, abundance, materialistic possessions. But Nachiket reflects and says, but these will all go away tomorrow. And if I die, I will not take all of these with me. I want to know that which will make me immortal and beyond death. And so the Yam invites him to his own inner knowing, and then invites him to the realization that Nachiket, or we humans, are beyond the body and mind. Beyond this body and mind, we are the spirit, the Atman, the soul, and the soul is indestructible, it is immortal. And that realization is the biggest realization, and that is what makes one immortal, because the soul is immortal, the soul never dies. So the day you stop identifying with the body and mind and realize that you are the Atman, you automatically become immortal. And so from questioning to realization, the whole journey is something that Nachiket took through in the Kathopanishad, and that is how they invite reflection and realization of the truth. And again, I've touched upon this briefly before, but the three stages of knowledge gaining are Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasan. So it starts with listening to the wisdom from the Upanishads. First, you hear the wisdom, and then Manan means reflection of that wisdom within yourself. So, you cross question, you try to understand what you hear. So, the question was that. What is it that makes the mind think, right? And the answer was that the speech of the speech, the seer of the seer, right? So who is the seer of the seer? Now that you need to reflect. After you've heard it, after you've heard the answer, you reflect on it. That's Manan. And finally, Nididhyasan is the stage in which you meditate upon it to fully realize the knowledge that you got. So these are the three stages of knowledge: Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasan. So, what can we learn from Upanishads and apply today? Basically, the method of teaching of the Upanishads, since it invites you to question yourself and find the answers within yourself, you are basically enacting out the Upanishadic teaching principle by yourself. Every time you ask an existential question about life, about world, about mind, about life and death, you are starting that curiosity of a shishya. And when you sit in silence, trying to listen to the answers, reflect on them, and realize them through meditation, that is what you are lighting your own lamp by becoming your own guru. And that is how Upanishads light that fire within you of curiosity and listening. And so it is not a journey of guru and student, guru and shishya that you need to take and that you need to undertake and study like a graduation or a post graduation course that you do in a college or a school. It is your own curiosity and your own reflection that is lit by the Upanishads, and that is the way they teach. I'll go into further depths with every episode. I'm just setting the baseline and the foundation of the whole teaching through my initial episodes. Let me know if you have any questions. Namaste.